Glorious people on this planet Earth. How are you doing today? Hope you're having a wonderful day. Welcome to the Mirror Point, where reality is checking itself. Today, I wanted to talk about a word that can make people very uncomfortable. It confuses them, annoys them, and that word is spiritual or spirituality. Now, for some of us, it's a very appropriate word. It sort of points to meaning, purpose, transformation, inner truth. But for some, it's like a big red flag. It signals superstition, woo, nonsense, pseudoscience. But what if spirituality doesn't have to be tied to any religion or the supernatural or to any belief at all? What if spirituality at its core is simply the personal journey of consciousness, one's own experience, the way each of us explores that experience and of being alive and aware, right? What if that's what we mean? Anyways, we're going to discuss these words and other things, and I'll react to a video. So for now, let's get to it. So I thought I would start off reacting to a recent upload video from the Line Edge with the Matt Dillahunty and Seth Andrews. These guys are atheists, if you don't know, public speakers, anti-apologists. They have call-in shows. They appear on different call-in shows. Like Matt goes back to the atheist experience some 20-something years ago. And I used to watch their shows all the time and everything like that. And they entertain callers that call in like theists and people like that. And they pretty much, have a discussion with them. And usually what happens is they end up either hanging up on the caller or just trying to really humiliate the caller through the call, because it's very entertaining to do that, right? That's what gets ratings. A lot of atheists you'll see in their little chat, live chats on YouTube and stuff like that will be, very entertained, and they'll be dogpiling onto the caller. So the vibe that I've always gotten from this is that it's all about just entertainment value. And to be fair, a lot of theists call in like trolls and they try to troll. And a lot of people come in with dumb arguments and stupid statements, and, and they fuck around and find out, because they don't really have any good talking points or arguments. And a lot of them come in very cavalier, overconfident. They talk a lot of shit. They get angry. They try to overtalk, take over the show. And it seems like over the years, Matt Dillahunty has lost a lot of patience with that kind of stuff. And he's sort of become this persona of the angry atheist. To me, that's how I perceive him, and others I've heard talk about him, that Matt Dillahunty comes off very angry, rude. Seth Andrews, he's another one. He used to be a Christian, I think a pastor, And he sort of has his own persona, which is kind of dismissive and kind of like, type of attitude towards it all. And they usually try to engage in really just asking questions and framing conversations a certain kind of way to really, test and challenge the caller, which is all great stuff, regardless of what your positions are, right? I don't have a problem with it and it's all mutual. You know, they call into the show, so whatever they're going to get, they know what what their risks are. You know, if in case they don't like being humiliated or set up or framed in the conversation and argued and stuff like that. And that's why a lot of folks, they call in with that kind of cavalier attitude, trollish attitude. Everybody knows who these folks are. But sometimes you'll get very sincere callers that call in. And I would say if you're a very sincere kind of caller, you have to understand what it is you're trying to accomplish by calling into these shows, man. Do you really think you're going to convince the host of these shows? You know, their job is not to agree with you, right? That's not the point. The point is entertainment. The point is to do as they always do. You know, that recipe has worked for years on these channels. They're not going to change up now. They're not going to see the light or become enlightened by your ideas on God or spirituality or your religion or whatever it is you're trying to express. And so I'm not really sure why people who are sincere call in. I can understand the folks that call in to troll. They want to troll, or they want to argue, or they want to just get attention, or whatever the case is. But some of these folks seem to be very pleasant, polite. They try to say, look, this is just me. It's just my understanding. I'm not trying to push it on you. And they always say that because, you know, Matt and them, they'll always seem like, well, you're not convincing me. That's their position. I'm not convinced. I don't know. And you haven't given me sufficient evidence to believe you, right? And so that's their position. And so when a genuine caller calls in, he's going to be always reminding them, this isn't for you. This is just for me, how I express. They call in just to express ideas and have a decent conversation. And you have to understand, if you're looking for a decent conversation, certain channels may not be for you, because that's not what these channels are set up for. They're not set up to have decent conversations. They're set up for entertainment value, right? And you're not going to really, maybe you're trying to convince people who are watching these shows, but really you have to ask yourself, why would you want to convince anyone in the first place? Is it not enough that you have your own approach to life and understanding? Like, understand, if you want to start a community of people like I do, where we can talk about things in a conversational way and just share ideas and stuff like that, that's really cool. That's what we humans do as social species. We create communities and, you know, little tribes, little echo chambers. And so we build out communities, even ones where we disagree maybe on a lot of things, just to have that discussion and challenge among each other in a pleasant, respectful way. But these sort of channels are not designed for that. So having said all that, I'm going to play the video and just kind of go through it a little bit, maybe not the entire thing. But it just seems to me, I watched a little bit of it this morning and kind of kicked off this idea to talk about spirituality. Now, after watching the video, I want to give my own thoughts and let you guys give yours about this whole word spirituality, what it might mean to people, what is the value of spirituality, why should we even use words like spirituality at all, right? We're going to talk about that. I'll talk about that anyways. And this video kind of highlights some of the challenges with the word, because there's a lot of word phobia. There's a lot of words that come with a lot of baggage, and people cringe at certain particular words because for them it means a particular thing. And so we'll watch the video. We'll see. I'll kind of like dissect it a little bit. Like I said, not the whole thing, but let me go ahead and get it going and we can take a listen.
yes, I am spiritual, as it were. Yes.
Okay.
Respect for y'all. I totally respect and understand why you guys don't believe in it, and I totally respect it. Because if I was in your shoes, I would do the same thing.
What do you mean?
But
What do you
if
mean
I
by
do-
spiritual? Can you define what you mean by your spiritual?
Very good question. So the first thing you want to do is define the term, because everybody may mean something totally different. There's religious spirituality. There's the non-religious people who have their idea of spirituality and so forth. And different religions, different teachings, wisdom teachings have different ideas about the word.
For me, this is me. I'm owning this. Is
Yes.
I
Can you
look at all
define?
religions, as it were, and every one of them has something golden in it, as it were. And I love all of them. And yes,
Hey,
so I can say.
So when you call any of these shows, you want to get straight to the point. You don't want to bloviate and speak around the topic. You want to get right to it, right to the point. Otherwise, they're going to shut you down, as you're going to see.
Nicholas.
Yes?
Nicholas, how do you define spiritual?
Oh, how do you define spiritual? Oh. Sorry, I'm a bit nervous, so forgive me.
You're fine. If that's how you describe yourself, is it a specific spirit? Are you attuned to something that you feel is otherworldly, or do you feel that?
Okay.
What spiritual mean?
So this is really cool. So how you're asking me this question is, so spiritual means to me is someone who's connected with divine, with self, and also find ways to connect with others. Find ways.
Okay, so it's for him, he's defining spiritual as something internal and something that can be expressed towards others.
To bridge and find ways we can
building bridges, finding ways of something. Let's hear it.
Connect, and even though we'll have agreements and disagreements, that there's ways we can find bridging and find understanding of where we're at in our lives, and maybe how we can all grow together and learn from each other. So that's my definition.
What I'm hearing is not anything supernatural. Sounds to me like communication, interpersonal interactions, empathy, things that human beings do beyond any supernatural or spiritual claim. Human connection is not a spiritual thing, is it?
Yeah, it is, because this is me. I'm owning this is when I'm connected with divine, when I'm in prayer meditation, I am choosing to, when I'm with myself, I'm like connected with that. Everybody's connected, and I choose to see the divinity within everybody, basically.
Yeah, so that's sort of a description that kind of reminds me of some of the more Eastern traditions regarding spirituality, a connectedness, being at one, with the universe, or being at one with others. It may not be the more Christian Islamic view of spirit, but I think it's legit.
It doesn't matter who you are. I don't care who you are. All that matters is that I respect and I share love where anybody is at, to the best of my ability, and I try and I do the best I can to catch myself if I'm in, say, my own ego and trying to find ways to connect.
Look at Seth Andrews wink at the crowd and smile with that little, he's about to drop some refutation here. I have a feeling he's about to put him in his place.
Act to the best of my ability, and I'm not perfect at it.
Hang on. What do you mean by divinity?
So
You see the
divinity
divinity within your fellow human beings.
So divinity means that we are collectively connected with God, doesn't matter where you're at, and also divinity means we're all on a spiritual path, doesn't matter who you are. You're
Hang on.
in it.
Hang on.
To
Hang
me,
on.
that's my opinion.
God. I just heard the first reference to God. Which God?
So God to me, well, first of all, God is love, just love, peace, joy, and I'm starting to kind of feel that. How does God deal with?
Another thing, when you call into these shows, you need to be prepared for these kind of questions. You know they're going to ask you these sort of questions. And so you see the look on their face. They're already getting impatient because they feel that the audience is getting impatient. They want answers, succinct, quick answers to these things. What God are you referring to? What do you mean by divinity? What do you mean by spirituality? You need to have these things laid out really quick. Be succinct is my advice.
Trauma, all the hatred and everything. Well,
my question is not the nature of what your God is supposed to do or not do. Is it the Christian God?
So it's a bit tricky. So this is for me. There's only one God.
I know it's for you. What I'm asking is, who is your God? Does it have a proper name?
At this point, he needs to stop saying, this is for me. He's already established that he's speaking for himself and not anybody else. I don't know what he's saying that for. It's like a reassurance of some kind or a way to pad what he's saying against whatever their responses may be. The guy seems like a very gentle person and he wants to be understood. And so he's taking a lot of care to express himself carefully. And, these guys are going to jump right all on it, man. They're going to try to, they smell blood, man.
The only God that I know that I feel is, you can call it the I am presence, love, peace, joy.
Okay, hang on. Hold on.
That's it.
So I have feelings of love, peace, and joy. No God's required.
Yeah, good point. Good point. I think what the caller should do is say that he uses words in his own particular way for his own reasons, whatever they may be. And so he's trying to use the word God as some general umbrella term that encapsulates these sort of concepts of love and connectedness and oneness with everything and everything itself, and expressed through different religions and people and nature and all of that kind of stuff. And it's for these guys, people like this, they're not used to dealing with those sort of concepts because it's very rare. Usually the people that call in are going to be, Christians who have a very well-defined God and this and that. And so that's really what they're sort of trained over the years to argue against. And these sort of things are sort of irritating. They're going to get very impatient with that kind of concept because for them it's vague. It's way too vague for them to really deal with head on. Their job is to just annihilate you on the phone. But they need you to define what it is they're annihilating so they know how to construct a response. They want to marshal up some kind of offense. So these sort of things are just going to get on their nerves. As you can tell, they're already getting kind of impatient. And I can sense Matt will probably go off on the guy here.
There's no deity involved. So
Right.
it sounds to me like you and I have that in common. Where does God come from in that scenario?
So,
For you.
for me,
Yeah,
this is for me. So for God, it's a bit tricky because I can understand, because it's been. I'm going to start with, you said Christian God, for example. So there's two. This is my opinion. This is me.
This is you. It's for you. Yes.
Hey, pause. I'm gonna pause for a second. Nicholas, listen to me. I put you on hold for just a second. I'm
Okay, this is where Matt Dillahunty is about to get extremely fucking rude. I guarantee you. He's going to say something really fucking rude to the guy.
hoping, right now it's a quarter till, which means we've got about 15 minutes. I'm hoping that you and I and Seth can have a conversation that takes us all the way up to the hour and is productive. We understand you're only speaking for yourself. We would not ask you to speak for anybody else. We also understand you're new at this and you're nervous.
Okay, he's not being rude. He's being understanding. Okay, cool.
You don't have to preface everything with caveats and everything else. We're just trying to understand. Every question we ask is, what does God mean to you? What does divinity mean to you? What does spirituality mean to you? We're trying to get to an understanding of what you're actually advocating for. And so when you talk about, for me, God is love and blah, 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 cool. At some point, this is going to get to a real critical issue. I'm going to take you off mute now, because Seth was just asking about love, like he experiences love. What does saying that God is love add to the concept of love at all? All
right, this is where the caller needs to really just follow the direction that Matt's giving them. Stop trying to, be more direct. Stop with the caveats. Stop with this is just for me. Stop with all the explaining yourself. Just get to the point, become more succinct, and let's get on with it, is basically what he's saying. So if the caller's, if he's listening, he'll do that. He should do that. Otherwise, he's going to get embarrassed.
Question that I have for you that sidetracks this is, do you think your beliefs are true, and do you care if they're true, or is it enough that they feel right to you?
So I'm going to do my best to answer that. So for me, is I feel in my being that they are true. It's not a thinking in my head. It's a inner knowing to me. I know that sounds a bit out there, but
I'm just wondering, do you think that that's a reliable path to truth?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something. Yeah, yes, because it's something I can't see. And of course,
because you can't see something, you think that makes it a reliable path to truth?
Well, it's so for me it is.
For me. Stop with that. You're about to get demolished. Maybe he is trolling. Maybe he's doing this on purpose. Who knows?
It's the unknowing is for me. It's something that haven't let's say.
For me.
How should I put this? Say more of experience a bit more, or
I don't think he's really thought out his own understandings. I don't think he has his own understandings. I think when people stumble when explaining themselves, it could either, I'm not going to say that, it could be that they just lack words to really express what they're really trying to get at. Maybe he's just getting at something that is sort of ineffable, which is part of what people allude to when they talk about spiritual experiences. These things are ineffable. Words cannot capture these kind of experiences themselves. Really, words can't really totally capture experiences. We sort of rely on other people to understand what we're talking about. But if it's outside of your experience, you can't expect another person to know what you're even talking about. That's the problem with language. It's just the tool. It's not the experience itself.
Claimed it, owned it for me, and also for
Me.
part of that is taking responsibility and accountability for it.
It's a verbal tick.
And that kind of goes with that.
Yeah.
And
Okay. Let's get back to Seth's
I hope
question,
that
because I don't
makes
think
sense.
mine's good. It did not
I
make
hope.
sense, but that's okay. I want to get back to Seth's question about we experience love.
Okay.
What does saying
Cool.
love add to that? And are you saying that we're experiencing God?
At some, yeah, I would say, yeah, like you feel that deep connection that it's kind of like your mind can't
Just say yes and move on.
put into words, and you feel like you really feel you want to do something that is right. Yeah, that's, in my opinion, yeah. Anything that's out of that is like, in my opinion, hatred, anger, or something that we allow to get control over is I would say the ego, which something that, in my opinion, that I chose to create myself or allow it to come in and take over, and I have the responsibility to see it, responsibility, accountability, own the feelings, and then find ways to do about it, take action.
He went way off the question because the question was about, is love the experience of God? And he went on and on and on. So just a suggestion, when you call into these shows, if you want to be understood, just answer the question. This is what they expect. Just answer the question short, succinct, to the point, direct as you can. But the only way you're going to do that is if you have already mapped out this conversation somehow. You have to sort of plan, and also practice. You have to practice expressing your views to others so that you can get better at it.
Action in a loving, compassionate way. Hope that makes sense.
No.
No. I mean,
All right.
we're trying to figure out what it is that you believe, whether or not it's true. So, like, for example, you say God is love. Do you think that God is a thinking agent being, or is God just a label you're putting co-equal to the abstract concept of love?
Good question.
So God is not a thinking, like a man in the sky. Let's get that out of the way. God is
God
consciousness.
A thinking being?
To me.
God is a consciousness?
Yes.
Okay, how do you know that?
It's something that let me say this in an analogy. So like when I'm in the forest or when I'm sitting next to a tree, it's like I feel connected to the tree and I'm one with the tree.
That's more vagueness, though, and it doesn't help. These sort of analogies expressing how you feel are not addressing the question they ask, like, how do you know that God is conscious? That's not doing it.
And I feel this deep feeling that I'm never separate from the tree. And I own it, I claim it, and whenever I feel like when I leave, that I always take that feeling with me. And
Nicholas?
And see, this is why a lot of people don't like words like spirituality and spiritual and God and stuff. It's so ill-defined. It's confusing. It's very vague. You have to understand your audience, where they're coming from. They're coming from a place of, just very practical, very logical, very skeptical, sort of view and understanding. That's how they approach life for them. And so when you use these terms, you're sort of speaking past them.
I've never felt one with a tree, but let's assume that you do. And let's imagine for a second that I'm out in the forest or in the backyard and I feel at one with the tree. How does that in any way prove that God is a consciousness?
Like for the plants, like they are alive, they have feelings, they in their own.
So Seth is just going to laugh about that because, of course, consciousness and stuff is only for humans. We're special. So that's, you got to understand, that's most people's understanding. So consciousness is already kind of a mysterious kind of word. It's hard to prove even you're conscious to another person technically. And so when you start saying that the trees and the birds and the plants are conscious as well, they're going to laugh at you. It's ridiculous. Obviously, we're the only ones that are conscious. We're humans. We're the apex predator. Consciousness is not on a spectrum. Only humans are conscious, right?
And they find ways to connect to all the roots around. So for me, it's kind of hard to think. It's more of a feeling. It's deeper in knowing. It's hard for me to stay in my head.
Even if I were to grant you that plants are alive and have feelings, how does that prove that God is conscious?
Because God is only is consciousness because when there's only love and peace and bridging and connecting, there's unity. That's like God at work, as it were.
Are you just ChatGPT that somebody is typing into and feeding me? Are you like a Deepak Chopra sentence generator?
So I knew the insults were going to come soon enough. I mean, possibly he is on ChatGPT. The guy has a hard time expressing himself because he's so scared he's about to get attacked and shut down, apparently. So he's trying to sound smart. I think what he's trying to express is there's this intersubjective field of awareness, right? Where you get a bunch of people together and we all sort of objectively see the sun together. That's sort of a field. A field is like, think of a football field, a bunch of players on the field, right? So there's a field of intersubjective shared experience. So there's a field of experience, basically, is what he's trying to say. And he's just personalizing this field, this intersubjective field of awareness as a God in his view, for whatever reasons, but he won't tell you what those reasons are.
I thought it was Jordan Peterson for a second. That's what I thought.
Oh,
maybe.
well.
I don't know. Yeah.
If I am saying something, if I am pushing something, I'm not trying to tend to do that.
See, here he is apologizing for himself again.
No, what you're doing is you are babbling incoherently and not answering the question at all. How would you demonstrate that something is conscious and is God?
Something is conscious. It's something.
He can't explain it, and the guy should know himself enough to know that he can't explain it. I think he just called in expecting understanding because he understands it a certain way. For him, it's ineffable. It's beyond words, whatever he's trying to express. Whatever it is, I don't really understand exactly what he's trying to express. I can only guess what he's trying to express. But when you call into these shows and you don't have your talking points together, you don't know how to get to your point, you're just vague. You're not doing any service to any. It's a waste of time. I don't understand why people waste their time with these call-in shows. Personally,
It's the air around us.
Holy
I can be
I don't know.
of no
I don't know if
further
you watch. I don't
assistance
know if
in
you
this
watch
matter.
movies or anything.
watch
I can be of
fuck tons of
no
see this.
I watch
further
fuck tons of
assistance
movies and a
this
ton
call.
of things on science and epistemology. And at no point in the history of the world has anyone else on the planet's answer to the question of consciousness been, it's the air around us.
I can be of no further assistance in this matter, Nicholas.
So they're pretty much looking at him like he's an idiot. And his fears have now been realized. The caller's fears have been realized. He's going to be looked at as stupid. And that's why he was trying to put so much work into his caveats. And, oh, this is just for me. This is what I mean. Let me give you an analogy. You know, he's trying not to be too direct because he already knows these people are going to look at him like he's some kind of idiot. He took a big chance calling into the show, most likely, but he felt compelled to do it for some reason, which I never understand why these people want to do that. You know, this just creates more entertainment fodder. This is why these shows exist, so that they can make fun of people like this that have bad epistemology, bad logical argumentation. They're even trying to explain something that isn't really in the domain of logic. You know what I mean? It's not in that domain of science and logic and stuff. And yet they call in to try to bridge this gap somehow. And it's just not going to work, especially when you don't even have your own talking points down. You don't even understand what it is you're trying to say.
Okay, well, okay, well, I tried my best to answer it with the best of my ability, even though they weren't correct. The one
And do
thing
you
I
feel like
have
that's a
to say
win?
this.
Do you feel like that's a win for you to have done it to the best of your ability, but to have made absolutely not one cogent point the entire conversation?
Even so, if it wasn't, the one thing I'm glad about was able to talk to y'all. That's
why?
Because I was able to.
Good question. Why?
Is that some kind of accomplishment? We're literally here all the time. And the only reason that you're continuing to talk to us right now is because we're like 6 minutes from the end of the show, and I'm desperate to get any sort of cogent thought out of you. Let's try this, Nicholas. Is God an entity, a person, a mind?
My opinion, that
From me, my opinion. Stop with all that shit, dude. It's a verbal tick.
Oh, tell me my fucking opinion. Of course I'm asking for your opinion, Nicholas. By the way, that's your verbal tick.
Yeah, verbal tick.
Your verbal tick is, for me, in my opinion, etc. Those are all the things that you put in as instead of us and ums. So let me ask you this. This is even easier. Does it matter at all to God or you or anyone you can think of if myself or Seth believe in the same God that you do? Does it impact our life in any way?
You don't have to believe in the same God as me, no.
If I don't believe in the God that you believe in, how does it impact my life?
Well, if you don't, let's say, for me is,
God damn, this is painful to listen to. Why do you guys put yourself through this crap, man? Why do you call into these shows to talk about things and you don't know how to talk about them? What made you compelled enough to do that? I'll never understand that. I never understand what your expectation is. And Matt's asking a good question. What is the win that you expect to get from doing that? Because you've just wasted your own time. You've made yourself possibly feel like an idiot. But I guess it's all part of your spiritual journey.
I would ask, this is, for me, the gods, as it were, are just reflections of.
I didn't ask what they are. I didn't ask what they are. I asked, how does it impact my life if I am not convinced that your God is real?
How does it impact your life? Well,
it's Seth.
So for me, well, if it doesn't impact your life, then that's fine. I have no.
No, I didn't ask if it's fine. Does whether or not I believe in your God impact my life in any significant way? Does something bad happen if I don't believe?
If something bad happened.
No, that's not what I asked.
Oh.
I didn't say if something. Here.
Oh.
Very carefully. I do not believe that your God is real.
That's where you need to start off. You need to understand where these people are. You need to understand your audience. These people don't believe in God. They don't like words like spirituality, divinity, things like that, oneness. They don't understand that shit. It doesn't make sense to them. It's incoherent babble to them because they're coming from a place of logic, reason, rationality, and science. Those are the kind of views they understand. They don't understand these sort of airy-fairy kind of concepts and words. That's not for them. It's for people like him that love to talk about stuff like that. So that's the first thing before you call. Understand your audience.
I keep believing that position, or if I keep not believing that your God is real, what happens to me?
For me?
What happens to me, again, they seem to be framing it from a very Christian worldview or something, or Islamic worldview, Abrahamic God kind of thing, where God punishes unbelief, remember? So that's kind of what they're driving at. For me,
I think honestly.
Hold on, let me back that.
Your God is real. What happens to me?
For me?
For me?
I think honestly, what happens to you? Well, nothing will happen to you. Nothing bad will happen to you.
Okay. If I believe that your God is real, what will happen to me?
Nothing bad will happen to you.
No, I didn't.
Okay, so what's the point?
Say, will anything good happen to me if I believe that your God is real? Or is your God completely fucking useless and irrelevant?
So,
for me,
Nicholas.
So if you didn't believe in God, let's say if you,
for me,
I'm going to try my best. Hopefully,
Nicholas. I think it might be time to go and sit next to the trees
Oh my goodness.
and have a good evening. Would that be fair?
Okay, well, apologies if I didn't answer your questions properly. I'm glad I was able
Apology
to talk with you
accepted.
too.
Goodbye.
Listen
I-
to the flower people bloom. I love
It
that
is so
song.
frustrating because I'm sitting here, I'm like, okay, if I don't believe, is there anything good or bad that'll happen? If I do believe, is there anything good or bad that'll happen? These are kind of straightforward questions. And it's kind of a, how relevant is your God? Because if you say, oh, I believe in a God, but if you don't believe in it, nothing good or bad will follow from that. It's completely irrelevant. Cool.
Yeah. So he couldn't explain why he's religious or spiritual, rather, because he couldn't make a case for any of the benefits of being spiritual. And that's the whole thing, and I'll just give you my take. I'll give you my view, because I use the term spiritual a lot on this channel, right? And I have a particular usage of the word. And the whole thing is that I'm defining spirituality, of course, without the supernatural assumptions. So the thing, like for this discussion, I want to define spirituality as the individual exploration of one's own consciousness, one's relationship to himself, to others, and to the world. So it's not just psychology, which is how you deal with your internal, but it's kind of also projected to how you view, others, So again, my definition isn't going to require angels, gods, chakras, quantum souls, or reincarnation, or any of that kind of stuff, right? If I use the term spirituality, which I won't use with folks like that or people that have word phobia about stuff like that, my term would only require awareness, curiosity, reflection, and sensitivity to your own experience. So spirituality in this sense is about transcendence, but also limitation. It's the awareness that there is more to your experience than the outward roles that you would play, but there's also boundaries you can't really escape, like mortality, uncertainty, limitation, and imperfection. So there is a role of psychology. So like spirituality sort of for me, intersects with your beliefs, your wounds, your traumas, your values, your attachments, coping strategies, your hopes and your fears. All becomes part of your inner life or your inner landscape, right? So it's kind of like Carl Jung once said, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. So the spiritual realm, if I might say that, in this framing is simply the realm of the inner life, okay? When someone heals from trauma or becomes more whole, that is spiritual. When someone seeks meaning or wrestles with suffering, that's spiritual. When someone learns to love themselves and forgive others, that's spiritual. No gods are required. No reincarnation, afterlives, souls, anything like that. You know what I mean? Like it's not, those sort of things aren't necessary in my view, to me. But then there's what language can't capture at all. This another part of that, right? So the other core aspect is what I call ineffability, the recognition that not everything you experience really fits neatly into logic or language. Language, like I said before, is sort of a pointer. It's not really the territory. So we have spiritual vocabulary like inner knowing, awakening, presence, alignment, flow, connection, oneness, right? And these can be helpful, but these are not scientific terms, of course. They're like the metaphors pointing towards states of consciousness that are really experiential, but not conceptual, if you know what I mean. So for me, spirituality often comes from experience like profound grief, profound love, psychedelic experience, meditative stillness, mystical states, your awe of nature, existential crisis, enduring pain, challenges, successes, your wins. All of these things teach you lessons in life and help you grow and evolve as a person. This is your spiritual journey, or as I usually call it, your life journey. So these are moments where kind of like the ordinary narrative breaks temporarily, and then something really deeper and more profound surfaces from all of those things, from your grief, from your challenges, from overcoming, from success, from failure, from stillness, from your awe of looking at the sky. This is where something deeper sort of comes to your awareness. And just because something is not analytical doesn't mean it's not real either, right? And let's define real. And this gets into the question that Matt had at the end, like, what's the point of being spiritual? Does it do anything good if I am spiritual? Does it do anything? Well, in a way, everybody's going through a spiritual journey to me. As far as how I'm defining it, everybody is engaged in a spiritual journey. So let's talk about consequence and impact. So I would define real in a very pragmatic way to Matt. I would say that, first of all, real is what has consequences. If an experience changes the trajectory of your life, if it sort of like alters your values, shifts your perception of yourself and others, or changes like your behavior, then it is real in the sense that it matters. And the only sense is what matters, right? It makes a difference. You don't need to prove that love is made of atoms for love to matter, right? You don't need to prove that meaning exists outside the brain for meaning to matter. You don't need to prove that the mystical state is metaphysically valid for it to have some sort of psychological weight. You just have to have the experience of these things. And we all will, and we all do at some point in this life. Most of us do. If you don't, I feel kind of bad for you because you're not living. Reality begins where the impact begins, right? I mean, it could be the smallest thing to the most goofiest thing to the most silliest thing, craziest thing, or most profound thing that's a spiritual experience. Like, people from different walks have spiritual lives, right? Some people are spiritual and religious. I was at one time, and their framework involves gods and scriptures and rituals and all that kind of stuff. And some people are spiritual and atheists. And so their framework would involve like things like awe, consciousness, phenomenology, ethics, meaning making, you know, which is just like agnostic people, people that recognize meaning don't require certainty, right? That's part of it. Some refuse all labels at all and yet live very deeply. The point is that spirituality is a human universal, even if the explanations all differ, because we're all different people, different journeys. And that's what makes up, you know, the human animal. We're all different. Now, why do people cringe at the word spiritual? Why do they hate this word? A lot of people do. Well, there are real reasons why the word spiritual triggers like skepticism, for example. Number one, like we were seeing in the video that I showed, it's the vagueness. People use it without defining it or being able to define it. It has supernatural baggage, like, you know, the guy was saying gods, but it could also be like ghosts, astrologies, energy healing, things like that. Then there's this pseudoscience contamination, right? Where people use scientific words incorrectly. Like he was talking about the Deepak Chopra type stuff, quantum vibration frequencies. There's like this anti-rational sentiment, like rejecting evidence in favor of your feelings. And then, you know, the New Age movement has commercialized it. Spirituality sold like a product. Like, again, you think of Jordan Peterson, Deepak Chopra, a lot of these gurus online, a lot of these people, all they're doing is selling you feel good concepts and ideas. And so people, when they hear the word spiritual, they think, oh, great, here we go with the woo again. But here's the interesting twist, right? The resistance is itself a spiritual stance. Because what it's doing is it's telling you something. It's telling you what you fear, what you distrust, where you place your meaning, how you relate to vulnerability, and how you define knowledge. In other words, your reaction reveals your relationship to your own inner world, which is spirituality. And that's kind of what was on display with the video. Everybody's expressing their own spiritual view. You know, it seems like the other guy is sort of searching and sort of trying to figure it all out. He knows there's something more profound. Maybe he doesn't like life. Maybe he sees this life as hard to deal with. And some people they're looking for escapism. But you're never going to escape it, because even the act of escaping is part of reality, is part of what you're immersed in. We're all inside this shit together. Even people who are skeptical of the word spiritual are on their own spiritual expression by doing so. It's a stance itself. You can reject the word, that's fine. You don't have to use any word you don't want to. Like I say, they're just pointers to something. It's what it's pointing to that's important. That's what's going, that's what we're doing. And if spirituality is a hindrance, if that word really hinders you from understanding, then you can find another word and we can talk about it and relate to each other using different words. Because maybe the baggage is just too much. You just can't get past that word. And that kind of, for me, kind of demonstrates your own spiritual state. That's where you are in your journey. You know, everybody's part of the journey. Everybody's part of this journey, man. You know, I used to interview people who had near-death experiences. I've always been really intrigued by it, because these people are having a very profound experience in extreme situations. And I'm not saying I know there's an afterlife, or I think there's an afterlife, or I don't know what to think about this shit, honestly. Maybe it's a biological function of the brain. Who cares? What's important is the experience itself and the impact it has on you. It's real. It has impact on these people's lives. When I interviewed all these people at the International Association of Near-Death Studies in California, these sort of really profound, extreme experiences have lasted a lifetime. They're not like dreams. They're not like hallucinations. They're not like things like that. They're very profound. But one thing that they all tell you is that everybody is on their own journey. We are here in this world to experience this life, all the ugliness, all the goodness, and everything in between. A lot of it doesn't make sense to me, like the problem of evil, stuff like that I wrestle with. So I'm not embracing the morality or ethical nature of it all. I just kind of sum it up to, we just live in a very natural world, and nature is sort of indifferent. And but if we all come in this world for the sole purpose, whoever's purpose that was, then that purpose seems to be, from what everybody I've ever talked to says that's had these NDEs, is that the whole purpose is to experience and to go through this growth. And you take all of that information with you wherever you go after you die. That's the impression they get. Nobody has really went through a near-death experience and didn't think there was not an afterlife. Every one of these people believe in an afterlife. Some believe in God. Most people say that God is just a bad word, that it's more greater than that. It's limitless. It's not contained in a word like God or language or anything like that. This is what they tell you. But it's not part of my experience. So if I'm genuine, I don't know. I have to say I'm agnostic on it. I am not convinced either way, but I don't think these people are lying about their experience, however. We just live in a very weird reality, don't we? And for me, that is a spiritual stance that I'm taking. That's part of my journey, is to understand things like that, to understand a lot of things. And that's one of them, the near-death experience. You know, it can't be just, you know, explained by oxygen deprivation. That doesn't work. It's got to be a multiple set of factors at play. Because when people lose oxygen, it's very chaotic. And it doesn't all fit that same near-death experience stories that we hear universally. So there's a lot at play with that experience. Something's compelling about it. Something is very interesting to me about it. Not one thing can explain it. There's got to be a lot of different factors. Or there is an afterlife. We actually live in a magical kingdom. Consciousness emerges from dead matter, just somehow. We live in that kind of magical universe. I'm fine with that, but I don't believe it, because I don't understand how that can work. If I don't understand it, why should I believe it? It's just like God. I don't understand what a God is. I don't understand why I should believe in a God. I don't understand the evidence presented for God as evidence. I don't understand it or see it. So why should I believe it? It's the same with a lot of things. I don't believe it. So most things I'm agnostic about. But again, that's my spiritual stance currently. Right? Like, I'm not dogmatic about anything. I'm kind of at peace with not knowing. And I'm very curious to just go through this life not knowing a lot of shit. It's okay, because I'm going to now be open to learn reality on its own terms rather than mine, because I haven't gotten in my own way by letting my beliefs and baggage sort of carve out my perception. So, you know, that's just where I stand on that. Now, does anybody have any thoughts on the matter? Are you a spiritual person? Are you not a spiritual person? Do you find it all bullshit? Do you find it, do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? Let me know. I put a link up here in case anybody wants to join me. I have a few minutes left. But it's something I thought I would actually talk about, because I've used the word on this channel a lot. Things like spirituality, mysticism, stuff like that. Because it's really the only word I can tell that I know of that kind of describes all the things that I just got done describing. You know what I mean? Like, I understand it's got baggage. I understand that a lot of people cringe at the word, and I try not to use it for folks like that. So, you know, maybe you're more of a scientific person. Maybe you like explanations that are in vogue with science, because science means, you know, maybe science represents intelligence and, you know, certainty somehow. Maybe that's how you understand things, in a scientific lens. Or maybe you understand it from a religious sort of lens. Whatever it is, join me. Let's talk about it, because I'm very interested in it myself. The same with mystical experiences. What are mystical experiences? Are mystical experiences, does that entail gods and stuff like that? What does the brain actually do during spiritual, mystical, or transcendence experiences? Because, you know, neuroscience doesn't dismiss spirituality. It actually studies it. And what it really finds out is fascinating. And I've looked into this stuff because I'm interested. Like, there isn't really a spirit gland or God neuron, but instead, spiritual experience seems to emerge from whole brain dynamics, right? Different networks in the brain synchronize to produce states like awe, unity, timelessness, self-transcendence, deep peace, sacredness, clarity. These are all alterations of consciousness, not hallucinations or delusions. Those are different, as it turns out. So we have this thing called DMN, which stands for the default mode network. And what happens is these things can get quiet. One of the biggest findings in neuroscience involves this DMN, you know, in the part of the brain responsible for self-reference, your story, your rumination, your projections like the past and future. During spiritual experiences, like say through prayer or meditation, deep flow states, psychedelics, the domain default mode network activity shuts down or sort of decouples, right? So when this happens, people report, I wasn't, separate anymore. I became one with the universe. The boundary of me dissolved. Everything felt unified. I've been through these experiences on, DMT, meditation, things like that. Lucid dreaming, out-of-body experiences. I haven't had a full out-of-body experience, but I've come mighty close more than 3 times. But what neuroscience will relate is to frontal lobe modulation and attention. There's a guy named Andrew Newberg. And Andrew Newberg, his research using fMRI and SPECT scans show that during deep contemplation or prayer, the prefrontal lobes increase activity, like your focus and attention. The parietal lobes, especially like orientation areas, they decrease in activity. The parietal deactivation does correlate with losing the boundary between self and world. And this is biological side of the oneness experience, right? Then we have neurochemistry like serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, this SH2HT2A receptor for serotonin is like sensory richness, insight, pattern perception. Dopamine is like salience, novelty. It's where you assign meaning and stuff. Oxytocin is like bonding, trust, connection, and you'll see this a lot in religious worship, in rituals. Now, these don't explain spirituality away. They just show why it feels so profound to you. It's what spirituality looks like from a third person perspective. That's the way I see it. It's what it looks like from that third person. From the first person, it's the experience, the feeling of these things. So it doesn't make it meaningless at all. It's just a perception. It's just a perspective where you're looking at this stuff from. And, it's a wonderful thing that science is able to do that. We're able to actually look at the spiritual experience from a third person perspective. Mystical states and predictive processing. It's like modern cognitive science models that will show the brain as like a prediction engine. So like with mystical experiences, they often disrupt the brain's usual predictive hierarchy. So what this is allows for is lower level sensory data, atypical sort of associations, like non-ordinary interpretations of things. And this is like why William James once described mystical states as like states of insight into depths of truth, unplumbed by the discursive intellect, as he said. Neuroscience really confirms that these experiences introduce novel perceptual priors, which can reconstruct your worldview afterwards, right? And this is deeply fascinating for people. It gives them the feeling of the mystical experience. It's why it's real and has consequences. The after effects, that's the important part. Like, this is where the word real becomes relevant again. Like, I was speaking to one person in our community, Cafe talks about this a lot. Like the studies at Johns Hopkins and the Imperial College found that a single profound mystical experience can cause really long lasting changes in your depression, your addiction, your anxiety, openness, values, empathy, your sense of meaning and purpose. This is what's helped me, because I suffer with a lot of anxiety, not depression, full-blown depression, but I manage my own anxiety through like sort of certain practices, meditation, deep meditation, going out in nature, and just sitting with the trees, stuff like that. Being in a flow state, like when I'm writing, articles for Substack, or writing music, or engaged in exercise or walking or anything, I get into a flow state. And this helps overall. You don't get permanent personality shifts from just your imagination or your fantasies, right? You get them from experiences that matter. That's what sort of rewires you. So like neuroscience would show us that experience is real, that interpretations are the optional part. So a theist might say, I contacted God. An atheist might say, well, my brain reconfigured its self-model, right? But both are interpretations that are just layered on top of the more fundamental thing, which is experience, consciousness. That's the fundamental part. This supports that, the idea that spirituality is human. It's not, sectarian or, a mental problem or something like that. It's just human. We all go through it. And this matters to my definition because when you ground spirituality in neuroscience, we remove the need for, metaphysical inferences, dogmas, or supernatural entities, magical thinking. I define spirituality as a mode of conscious experience with identifiable neural correlates and lasting psychological impact. It's real. And it can be studied from a third-person perspective through neuroscience. And it fits perfectly with consciousness, psychology, meaning, transformation, inner life. So, this whole reductionism versus complementarity, like some skeptics try to reduce spirituality to just brain chemistry, as if naming the mechanism removes the meaning. It doesn't. That's like saying love is just oxytocin. Music is just vibration, man. Art is just pigments on the paper. Mathematics is just neurons firing. Mechanism doesn't eliminate significance. The brain is just that organ that lets spirituality happen. It doesn't explain it away. It just explains how it works. That's all. That's all it really is, man. And there's nothing wrong. It doesn't devalue anything. For me. But for other people it does, of course. Other people reject it outright, and they try to use the neuroscience to explain it all away, as if it's nothing to see here. But that's to miss the whole point. That's missing the whole point. There is an experiential dimension to this whole stuff, a first-person dimension that people want to gloss over and roll their eyes at. It gets a big rolling of eyes sort of effect on a lot of people. It's because of where they're at in their spiritual journey, right? And, what people don't understand is, there's been a lot of study in this stuff, a lot of neuroscience of mystical spiritual experience. There's studies that show decrease DMN integrity and increased global connectivity during mystical states, like the 2012 paper from Carhart and Harris. 2015, Lebedev made a paper finding the self by losing the self, the neural correlates of ego dissolution under psilocybin. They're even using mushrooms, microdosing to treat depression and things of that nature. Traumas. These things are very real. Meditation experience is associated with differences in default mode network activity and connectivity. The same with prayer, meditation, parietal lobe orientation. There was a paper way back in 2001 by Newberg and D'Aquili that was entitled "Why God Won't Go Away" or something like that. Brain science and the biology of belief, something like that. And it really just studied through neuroimaging, and it was peer reviewed. Contemplative prayer reduces parietal lobe activity. So there's a lot of papers on this stuff. Meaning, salience, neurochemistry is all connected. The neurobiology of psychedelic drug implications for the treatment of mood disorders, things like that. And it goes on and on. I could list out a lot. If I really pulled up all my notes here, I could do that, but I don't want to bore everybody. But, the even more fascinating question is, why is there such a profound experience associated with neurochemistry, with the matter of the brain at all? Why should dead matter produce any experience? Forget a spiritual experience, any experience. This contemplation is really big in my spiritual journey. Trying to address the hard problem of consciousness. Why should there be any experience at all correlated with any of these sort of brain states and stuff like that? This is fascinating. Regardless of what the answer is going to turn out to be, it's going to be wild. It's going to be fascinating, regardless. Because it just shows that either we live in a dual world where the brain produces and generates conscious experiences, which is kind of like saying that something comes from nothing. The something is the experiential dimension, comes from an entirely different category of thing, namely the brain or the matter that we experience. So in other words, the things we experience explains the experience of experiencing those things, which is wild in itself. It doesn't seem logical. It seems broken. It seems circular. It seems kind of crazy if you really think about it. But a lot of materialists and physicalists take this view. And to me, this is no different to me than magical thinking. But I'm not saying that as a put down. If it turns out that this is the case, wow. But also on the alternative view, you would say that, well, just as matter emerges from other matter, consciousness may emerge from deeper forms of consciousness. That seems to make more logical sense from a logical perspective. I can understand H2O, the fire triangle. It's all physical stuff. combustion, and all of these things are emergent properties from other physical substances and things like that. And that's understandable because they all relate consistently. But consciousness coming from non-consciousness is like something from nothing type of stuff. Because experience is what I'm talking about. When I talk about consciousness, I'm not just talking about the process of the neurochemistry and stuff like that. I'm talking about the first person experience of it. That's different than the third person perception of it, like from the outside. Like when you look at a mirror and you see your face, that's kind of like a portal into your subjectivity from a third person point of view. So when someone sees you and they assume you're conscious, they're seeing consciousness from their perspective, from a physical sort of perspective. That's how consciousness appears to other consciousness, as what we call physical. And that's fine. That's just the way reality is. That's how we see each other, right? But you're never inside a person's experience. But what's really fascinating is sort of like thought experiments. Suppose like I think I was watching a video by Bernardo Kastrup that was talking about maybe plugging into someone else's experience somehow through a VR, where you could actually one person would wear the goggles and they would see the world, and then you were connected so that you were seeing what they were seeing. And so it kind of like builds this empathy within us towards other people. We start seeing others as ourselves because we have this direct experience of experiencing the world through other people's eyes. So it's like there's a very small little shred of difference there that separates us. And so when you practice that, or you can engage in that kind of thing, then it kind of like builds this understanding that we are all sharing this consciousness field thing, that we're all part of the same experience, just seen differently from different perspectives. So it was really kind of an interesting thing. I saw the video. Maybe I'll react to it at some point, but really interesting shit, man. But yeah, it doesn't look like anybody wants to discuss spirituality or the interpretation of spirituality from me. You can always express it from yourself, though. We're all we're all unique people. But it's been an hour and a half. I got to get going, guys. But I did want to rant on this. I wanted to react to the video. And I appreciate you, man. Thank you for joining me. Tomorrow, hopefully, I'll be able to do the show. I might have things to do, and I might not be able to make it. But if so, it's usually every Saturday, 12 noon Central Standard Time. And my co-host is with me, Sophia. And we have a really good time, and we talk about a lot of things. Everyone's free. It's 100% call-in as usual. And we can interact and talk about anything: religion, spirituality, consciousness, atheism, theism, all of these sort of things. And we just try to have a very open sort of conversation. So if you like that kind of stuff, please, man, like and subscribe to my show. I want to build this community and have more of these sort of interesting conversations. Not like, the line and all these other things. I mean, I'm not like a big channel at all. My production manager is a cat named Moxie, so she's not that sophisticated. So like and subscribe, become part of the community so we can have real conversations, real open conversations at that. So anyways, guys, I appreciate you being here, man. Y'all be good. I am out.